Hi, you guys. Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks again for joining me for this week's Q&A video. If you're new to the channel, I always encourage you as a new viewer to go to my website, find out what I'm all about, find out the resources that I share with each of you that's available there on the website. It is themodernshaman.net, and it has resources for teaching. If you're interested in learning more in a formal scenario with my masterclass teaching curriculum, as well as personal sessions if you would like to meet with me one-on-one. All of that information is available on the website. I also wanted to make a short announcement that I am going to be doing an event coming up on April 14th. In a couple months, I will be housing a shared event here in my courtyard as part of kind of this ongoing desire to connect with each of you through ceremony. So the event on April 14th will be from 2:30 to 5:30. So it's a 3-hour event, kind of in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. And it is focused on a modern take on a soul retrieval. It's a group event, so it will be a group soul retrieval. And I'm partnering with a great friend of mine and medicinal practitioner, Amy. And Amy works through Violet Crown Wellness out of Austin. And she is going to be performing the first part of our ceremony in terms of the movement as well as biodecoding. She has a process through her initiative where she speaks in the language of the body and works the trauma to pinpoint the language in which the body is speaking to you and help release trauma and timelines in which that trauma is connected. We're going to utilize her specific skills as the initiatory energy into our soul retrieval ceremony, and then go into my section, which will be the drumming and the shamanic journey itself into the deep calling to retrieve any aspects of your soul that may have been lost on this timeline or any other due to trauma stored in the body. So it will be a powerful, powerful ceremony of deep diving into our traumas, our sore points and wounds in our soul, in areas of vacancies where our soul needs to be revitalized and call home the energy we may have given away to others. So if you would like to join us, it will be a wonderful time that I'm opening my home. I'm gonna start kind of promoting it. Today's the first day that I'm talking about it, but I'll be promoting it on my website as well as on my social media channels and avenues, posts, and things like that. And if you're interested, I would encourage you to reach out through my website, themodernshaman.net, for more information and payment links and times and locations and all that. All right, so let's get on to the questions sent in for today. This one says, "Hi Rachel, I really value this channel and have to say thank you for sharing your personal experiences. I was so touched by your recent video and learned so much from you and really appreciate your sincerity." Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I wanted to ask you about how you were able to see from multiple perspectives. I was so fascinated by one of your videos when you mentioned seeing people as a young child when their inner child needs healing. How do you see people on a day-to-day basis? Does your clairvoyance bleed into your life? Yeah. That's the simple answer. Yes. Okay. Trying to kind of settle into the energy of your question. How do you see people on a day-to-day basis? Does your clairvoyance bleed into your life? The easiest way to talk about seeing from a multidimensional perspective is to compare it to peripheral vision. That is a great analogy. So if you are looking right now in this moment at me on this screen and you're looking into my eyes, you're able to see me in the foreground, right? And there's background, and then there's probably peripheral, right? Which would be on the sides. And if I tell you to listen to what I'm saying, but to focus on the peripheral vision, you can't really go there with your eyes. Like you can't like split your eyes and go there. Then that would be your foreground vision, right? And it would no longer be accessing your peripheral vision. What you have to do is essentially still maintain your eye focus forward, still maintain contact, but your awareness opens and you become aware of things on the side of your vision. And typically the first thing that you become aware of is movement, shadows, and the play of light. And you're somehow, after time of practice, able to identify the shape of those objects, what they may be doing, if there's action in your peripheral, what's happening. So you're kind of actually utilizing your multidimensional senses when you're using your peripheral vision, because it's not your direct optics. Your optics are really playing out more with shape, with shadow, with movement, but your cognition is having to process what's going on at the same time. So it's layering with your vision in order to communicate information to you. The same is true when I am just living my life, or when most clairvoyants live their life, and or anyone really that has activated their multidimensional vision. You are seeing, but it is overlaid with your extrasensory perception of understanding. So I may be seeing multiple timelines at once, and then it helps to have my cognition decipher what it is that I'm seeing. I know that's kind of wordy, and it's really not complicated when I share this process. You may say, I do this all the time. I just didn't know that that's what I was doing. So much of our intuitive experience and our awareness of the psychic realm is so much a part of who we are as spirits infusing this human form that we often are surprised by when someone languages it and gives it vocabulary or gives it a definition and says, this is what this is what you're doing, this is called clairvoyance. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that. I just thought that's the way I saw. I thought that was just how everyone sees, right? Well, they do in a sense, but it can be broken down and languaged through our extrasensory perception. So, for example, when I see someone and a timeline is overlapping in their life, meaning like when this happens, it's typically when someone is talking about an event, and that event is poignant in their life or has some sort of nodal impact, like a node of energy, like a rock going down into a wave or into water, and it's creating a wave. It's creating a ripple in their timeline, okay? And so I may see multiple timelines overlapped into that moment. So I'm looking at their face, and this is a normal day, and they're just talking about a decision they're trying to make. Whether they should have a baby, whether they should divorce, whether they should get married, whether they should go to this college, whether they should take this job. Okay, so decision-making points, and they're speaking about it, and it's a simple enough conversation, and I'm looking at them. But what I'm seeing is a lot of times I'm seeing their face as it is, and then I will see their face age. So I will have this awareness of a progression of time. Sometimes it goes backwards when those events trigger their childlike issues, maybe of abuse. I see that come up a lot, like in relational issues, when you're trying to make a decision of staying with someone or getting married or not. It will trigger if there are childhood traumas or childhood issues associated with relationships with their mother or their father, or that kind of are still playing out and patterning in their current relationship. They will suddenly, like, their face will almost look really young or like a little child, or they'll get pigtails. Pigtails happen a lot with me because it's a quick identifier of like they're acting from their childhood. This is triggering a childlike state in them, and it's not always negative. Sometimes it is like a response when we want to run away from something that scares us in a decision. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's innocence and purity. And my claircognizance has to process that. There's a lot going on all at once when you are seeing an activated multidimensional self. Then, and that can all happen in a split second, right? They're talking about it. You're seeing either future also, like they can age and look way older. They're talking about a decision, maybe of where they're going to go to college or a job that they're going to take, and suddenly they look very old. This happens with my children all the time. So I will have this awareness of like, wow, that's a long-lasting decision. That's going to impact them until they're in their 20s, because I can see the energy from that nodal point projecting out like forward in a timeline to where they look like they're in their 20s or 30s or 40s or whatever it may be. And so there's an awareness of my claircognizance of how important and vital that decision is and how long it's going to impact on their timeline. Let me think of, there's also perspective on a kind of global or economic issue. This looks different to where my vision will be looking at something and talking to someone, and we're engaging about a decision, something that they're going to do that's going to have like economic impact or a larger impact on a community or a household. And I will almost like pan out as if my vision is somehow able to kind of be a drone and kind of go up and see a larger perspective. Sometimes it goes so far out that I can see all these people, and it almost looks like the people are ants, right? And I have this higher omniscient perspective, like my eyesight is literally in a drone, and I can see all the kind of like web of connections and people, but they look and they move about the size of an ant, and they're all connected. So I can see how huge that impact is going to be. Now the ants, obviously that's an extreme scenario. Sometimes it just goes a little bit above their household, and I can see that it's going to affect the entirety of that whole household. This is especially true when it comes to like divorce or moving, things like this, citywide perspectives, global perspectives. And it happens in an instant, but I'm consciously aware, and I've done it enough. I'm familiar enough with this vision or type of imagery that comes up. It almost feels like you're imagining it, right? Like your imagination. But it's an awareness in your claircognizance that this is actually multiple perspectives, multiple timelines communicating and layering on top of one another. So when you're familiar with this type of communication, you're able to decipher what it means. As simple as that. Just like speaking two languages. You are all at once viewing from a multidimensional perspective. The same is true. I mean, I'm using those examples, but the same is true when people start talking about illness. I will be looking at them and listening to them speak, but at the same time, I'm aware that like kind of my energy is pulling in or zooming into a certain area of the body, a certain organ, a certain cell, certain virus or bacteria, and I'm able to feel the longevity of that, or see their face and how long they're going to be dealing with that, if it moves far into the future, if it is causal of death or transition. If it's something that came from a previous timeline, something that's inherited. I see almost like layers of others' faces on top of their faces. You may be doing this too. I know it may be, I feel like when I share these things, it sounds kind of extraordinary, but it's really not. The reality of how quickly this happens, it's almost just like a flash in your eye, and if you're not used to paying attention to it, it feels like an imagination. It feels like you're really into the story of what someone is sharing with you, and you're kind of imagining what they're saying along the way, or you're projecting, oh, that's gonna, your thoughts of like, oh, that's gonna be with them for a long time, or oh, that decision is going to really, really carry for future generations. That is how multidimensional communication happens. They're speaking it to you, and your consciousness in your multidimensional active claircognizance is telling you the impact of this. Now, if you are aware and awakened to the fact that that is in fact a subtle layer of non-physical communication all the while, then you don't miss it. then you know, oh, what I'm actually receiving is that this is going to impact multiple generations in your household, and so on and so forth. I would encourage you, if this is happening, or if you're fascinated by this, maybe it's your intuition kind of drawing you to practice it with a little more intent. And if this is you, I would encourage you to start with peripheral vision, just like I brought up at the beginning of this video. If you start with peripheral vision and you focus on something in the foreground, look at a picture. It's easier when it is a live person, when there's life energy that is literally in the now happening versus like a static image or picture. So when you're talking with someone, practice engaging with them in their foreground and then engaging more actively with your attention on your peripheral. So you're still here, but then you're actively trying to view and perceive and understand what's happening in the peripheral. So you're shifting your awareness, even though your gaze and your optics of your literal eyes in the 3D is still moving forward or looking at the same object or the same person. Your awareness has broadened. And then if you can do that and you can get good at that, to where you're essentially seeing multiple perspectives and you're conscious of multiple perspectives at once, meaning your cognizance has spread to where you're still active here, but you're also active in your peripheral at the same time. You can carry on a conversation at the same time, talking about what's happening here and engaging here. Once you've gotten that down, then you can push back even further and you can move your vision behind your head to where you're seeing through your body. So this is a little bit moving into remote viewing or astral projection, but it is shifting your visual into your third eye. So the ability to visualize, not using the dominant perspective of just our optics, but using our consciousness as our predominant area of vision. So it would shift, you would imagine, you start with your imagination, that you are visioning yourself, that you're able to place your eyeballs just a little further back, like back here, behind your head. And you would see through as if your body is hollow or transparent, right? And you're able to see through the head forward. And you'll actually feel, when you practice this, you'll actually kind of feel this distance, pulling your consciousness a little further out, but it's still in a safe proximity to where you still feel an ease, but your dominant area of vision is from consciousness at this point, not from optics. So from here, you kind of see through, but you're still looking at the similar line of sight. So it's not too hard, it's not too far of a reach for you when you're practicing this. And you'll just feel a bit of distance from the body. You'll see the same type of perspective. Once you get good at that, so you're seeing from behind here all the way through the foreground. So you're using your body also as a foreground. You're seeing through that into that same person or object or whatever it was in front of you. And you are seeing your peripheral. So now you're holding 3 perspectives simultaneously in multidimensional vision. And then you are also using your dominant line of sight and vision as consciousness. This is a great practice, and you just do it a little bit at a time to where you can practice talking at the same time while you're doing that, because that'll also kind of take some practice communicating while you're perceiving and receiving from all of this and holding your brain in that open space of consciousness being your dominant space of vision. Then you can practice closing your eyes and doing the same thing with your eyes closed. But engaging again the dominant force being consciousness and creating from that space. So I hope that was helpful to you, and I encourage you to go further in your personal practices and see what you are capable of, because we are so phenomenal. And a lot of this is very intuitive. It sounds complicated when you talk about it, but it's not. When you're actually doing it, people are always amazed, like, oh, that was easy. I just did that just like that. Yeah, you did. All right, I'm going to sign off here. I'll be back next week with another video. Bye, you guys.